In the last Victorian budget, for instance, we've committed ourselves to another $450 million in the building of a new prison. We're probably, generally speaking, in a safer community than we were 10 years ago, and yet our prison population is exponentially increasing. We know when we say we build more prisons, we're going to occupy them. We know that they are the least cost efficient, and when you look at their KPIs, if we looked at prisons in terms of industry generally, we'd close them all down because of their poor outcomes. There's a 49% chance that if you go to prison, you'll be so contaminated by the process that there's a 50% or just shy of 50% chance that you'll commit a crime so serious that will return you back into the prison system. We know that it costs $135,000 a year on average to incarcerate someone. And yet with those, as I said, when we look at those KPIs, we say, well, how can this system, how can this structure be justified? And it's really driven by the politics, we know that. And we know that both parties engage in this process. They're never challenged. Who's going to criticise a government, for instance, that says we're locking up more crooks? Who can ever criticise a government on that basis? But what we don't say, we don't take that next step and we don't say, well, how are we going to build a more cohesive society, a safer community in the long term to ensure that people don't return back into the prison system? How are we going to deal with young people, for instance, who have 40 years of work ahead of them, 50 now that retirement age is 70, 50 years of work ahead of them, if they're contaminated by imprisonment particularly at a young age. What we need to do is try and look at different programs that divert people away from the criminal justice system, but particularly the incarceration model. It's expensive and it's ineffective. $135,000 a year to incarcerate someone. It costs about $35,000 to $40,000 a year to place that same person in a full-time residential drug unit program. So we know when you go to jail, what happens when you go to jail? Well, firstly, you meet or you're entrenched into a peer group that necessarily has to support itself when they're discharged from prison. We know that when someone's discharged from prison without any support, I'll talk about parole in a minute, but when they're discharged from prison, their prospects of getting work are negligible. Their prospects of getting housing are negligible. And so what do? They return to their old friends who provide support to them when they're in jail. Can't get work, can't get housing, your family's fractured. What do? You return to your old ways. Usually petty crime, drug use, and then the crime escalates into more serious stuff.